Disney's extra-legal establishment of a de facto nation-state on the soil of Florida has been an open secret for quite some time. Decades, indeed. And yet it was never called to task, despite flagrant and obvious abuse of the governmental systems set up to oversee Disney's Magic Kingdom. For example, the simple fact that the special district's board meetings never kept any records, or even recorded them in the first place, it seemed. A red flag, the size of the Disney castle in and of itself, and yet utterly and completely eclipsed by the fact that the two promised, quote, model cities that Disney vowed to erect around Disney World to support and care for its workers never materialized in any form whatsoever. And one would imagine that the absence of a couple of metropolises would be hard to miss. And yet, that is precisely what happened. As Disney continued to unilaterally take advantage of the state of Florida for decade after decade after decade after decade. How was this even possible? Well, now, finally, we know. And most remarkably of all, is the reason why. As we only know because Disney insisted on shooting itself in the foot to a degree probably unrivaled in human history. Or at the very least, not since Carthage declared war on Rome one too many times. And it seems more than likely that Disney's kingdom will follow in that city's footsteps. For you see, the governmental entity that was supposed to keep an eye on Disney used to be called the Reedy Creek Improvement District. But today it's called the Central Florida Tourism Oversight District, and it was appointed specifically by Ron DeSantis, governor of Florida, and no friend to Disney, just like they had been no friend to him. And they have put forth a report and now a public hearing showing exactly what happened. And it all comes down to the unprecedented degree of institutional capture that the Disney company was able to achieve over the district. The district, incidentally, of course, referring to the previous Reedy Creek Development District, now defunct and replaced. This was the governmental entity established via the agreement between Disney and the state of Florida, the aim of which was to provide various benefits that would entice and draw the Disney company and its ideas of an enormous entertainment park to Florida. This in and of itself is not necessarily unusual. A state might give special dispensation to a company to ensure it can become a success, or to ensure that it builds its next mega factory in their state, as this in turn will provide the state with jobs and added value, like, in this case, via tourism. What was unusual, however, was the degree to which the government favored Disney and the way Disney continued to take advantage of the district. Though all blame cannot be placed on Disney, as the original agreement between Disney and Florida was a very, very poorly thought out one, which gave Disney unprecedented and hitherto unmatched privileges. One of the single largest mistakes was that the state of Florida failed to include any mechanisms on its own behalf to punish Disney in any way. No matter how many promises Disney violated, no matter how many rules and regulations they ran roughshod over, the Reedy Creek Development District had no recourse, no powers, and no abilities to do anything. They could not even fine Disney for its countless and near consistent violations of fire codes. This titanic oversight should have been picked up on and rectified were it not for a bevy of other problems as well. One of the things that turned out to be not so smart, for example, was that originally Disney was supposed to pay for the district's employees, the people supposed to oversee and rein in Disney. This, again in retrospect, was a very bad idea, as it meant the people supposed to control Disney were, in essence, Disney's own employees, and so obviously would favor the company, their paymasters, in virtually all matters. It also meant that they were living on Disneyland, receiving complimentary Disney tickets, Disney discounts, and employee benefits to the tune of thousands of dollars every year. Because, well, they were employees of Disney. Already, this leads to a whole heaping heck of a lot of problems if you're intending for these to be the people to actually keep Disney on a leash. And it was made yet more complicated by the fact that all of these various benefits were also exempt from taxes. Why? Because all of the freebies were, by the Reedy Creek Development District, considered to be, quote, necessary training material to get them familiarized with Disney. Improper at best. And certainly it did not end there. The cost of these, let's be honest here and call them what they were, de facto bribes, ran into the millions of dollars, an expense Disney would prefer to be without. And so in 1999, on Disney's prompting, the district created two separate payrolls. Now the district would pay for its own employees with state money, but the Disney freebies offered to the district employees would continue just as before, but with one minor change. Now, Disney would bill the district for the cost of the benefits. The Reedy Creek Development District was now paying for its own bribes while still printing the mouse's name on the envelope. And to give an idea of the scale of this, if they had been taxed properly, so a percentage of the total costs, then between the periods of 2020 to 2023 alone, 638 district employees should have paid $2.1 million in taxes. And since this deal went on for well over 20 years, the total amount of money that should have been taxed probably stretches into the tens of millions. But Disney making Florida pay for the bribes used to purchase the loyalties of Florida government officials, oh, that's just the icing on the cake. The district would also pay for all utilities used in the district, with the exception of policing, and any acquisition of utility services under $200,000 could simply be bought by Disney and billed to the district with no meetings and no approval required. And for any purchases above that, it would have been required by law that that service should have gone to a bidding round, where the cheapest and the best service could be selected via all of the people willing to offer it, to make sure that the taxpayers were paying for the best product at the lowest price. In Disney's case, however, this did not go to a public bid. It was instead offered to a predetermined list of vendors, a list of course set up by Disney's aid and not changed for years. So, under $200,000, Disney just billed the state, and above that, they determined who would be asked. And of course, as this was Disney's list, only those who worked on Disney's terms were allowed. Anyone who decided to disagree would undoubtedly not find themselves re-invited for the next round of bidding. Yet again then, Disney was able to enforce their rulings upon others. This entire process not so much damages any other business's ability to compete, but outright annihilates it. And the abuse of public funds by no means stop there. The road infrastructure in the district leading anywhere but Disneyland is famously awful. So $21 million were earmarked to fix the problem. Disney used a few $1,000,000 to touch up their own roads, and then simply moved the rest over to the district's general funds, where they could access them at their leisure. The reason given? Disney found the official assigned to completing the road work to be aggressive and difficult to work with. Sounds like at least one district employee was trying to do his job. And speaking of infrastructure, in 2003, Disney sold its utilities infrastructure, piping, electrical grid, etc., to the district. Up until then, Disney had owned it and paid for its maintenance themselves. But now it sold it all for $70 million without any evaluation as to what it was actually worth. Disney simply made up a number, and the district paid it. And the best part, you know who still runs all of those utilities? Disney employees do. And guaranteeably bills the district for their services. And better still, when the new district board, appointed again by Ron DeSantis to start cracking down on Disney, hired in outside experts to produce the report that we can now read, the experts were denied entry to the utility buildings the district owns by Disney employees. Why? Well, to speculate a little bit, the power plant located in the district does not generate power. All power is bought externally and billed to the district. The power plant is supposedly there for emergencies, but the experts hired to look into the claims, well, he thinks it would take a very long time to spool up that type of a power plant, and so it would be of little help in an emergency. More likely, then, is that the plant probably simply doesn't run, and yet was charged to the taxpayers along with everything else in the $70 million utility package. And even this is small fries compared to the time Disney got the district to pay for 3 parking complexes, costing a grand total of $700 million that only serve and benefit Disney. This, by the way, is why it's actually kind of unfair to say that the district was Disney's own personal magic kingdom, because any real kingdom, any actual sovereign state, would have to pay for its own buildings. But hey, we are not done yet. We've got some more tax evasion to go. Because normally, when a business in the district does something that is likely to negatively impact the district in some way, there is an impact tax. Now, this is usually not anything drastic or dramatic. It's stuff like, if you build a hotel, then that's going to increase traffic in the area because, well, hotel. It will attract more people, leading to increase in wear and tear on the roads. And the impact cost is thus designed to offset that. Except Disney was, of course, exempt from this. In perpetuity, in fact. And so it has avoided hundreds of millions of dollars in taxes this way. At least 130. In this one respect alone. And it means that, again, no one can actually compete with Disney in the area, as anyone else who wants to build a hotel or a resort will have to pay these taxes and Disney will not. And just to add insult to injury, when Disney is forced to pay some taxes, it likes to pass those taxes on to its tenants on Disney grounds via a so-called Central Area Maintenance Provision, so that what little taxes Disney does need to pay are passed on to them, the tenants. The new district board does not know how much Disney passes on because Disney refused to release that information to the independent auditors. That's not suspicious at all, of course. And the worst part of it all, worse than the incredible misuse of public funds, worse than the wasted millions poured directly from the public treasury into a private corporation, is the fact that this would have gone on indefinitely. The belated dismantling, the long overdue destruction of these unprecedented and unrivaled sweetheart deal, of course, only comes in as a direct consequence of Disney's none-too-secret woke agenda. Disney believed itself a nation-state, equal to, or perhaps even superior, to the state of Florida, which it had so bamboozled, and thus believed itself to be entitled to interfere in Florida's elections and directly attack its elected representatives and the policies they were mandated to implement. It does not matter how correct a company thinks it is not the place of private enterprise to make it its clear and publicly stated goal to repeal legislation created by the duly elected representatives of a state. This should be pretty gosh damn self-evident. And yet, the ever-present brain rot of wokeism has caused a corporation to choose death, in essence, as without the countless special protections and privileges that have been afforded to Disney now for decades, an already struggling company that has produced next to nothing but box office bomb after bomb after bomb, is all but certain to crumble beneath the weight, appropriately enough, of its own hubris. I guess the old saying really is true. All of our dreams can come true if we have but the courage to pursue them.